what practical initiatives have been effective in improving firefighter wellbeing?
Chief.
Okay, thanks, Eric. I've made a list here in front, and I'll try not to ramble on too long. I think there's been some discussion about some of this stuff already. Chief Ledoux talked about the annual NFPA physicals here in the United States, and they've come a long way. Another one of these things that's improved over time. It is sort of a minimum standards, if you will, approach. But it does provide that baseline for the American Fire Service, at least in the career side, and hopefully volunteer companies are doing this as well, to provide the 13 essential job elements of a firefighter, what make up that NFPA physical, and I firmly believe it should be mandatory. It's there's an initiative here in the United States. Well, it's U.S. Canada, really, sponsored by the International Association of Firefighters, but the IAFC is also a part of it. Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. It's called the WFI, or the Wellness Fitness Initiative. And the benchmark, or the underlying linchpin to that, is that it is supposed to be non-punitive. Now, the trick is, as Anthony mentioned, if you have to get to a point where somebody's fitness is so bad that they can't pass the physical, they can no longer perform the job functions, and therefore they can no longer be a firefighter, right? That's a risk management decision that's made by others, right? There's a liability posed by that person, but I would offer that as a fire chief, if I have somebody in my organization that's in that spot, then that's a failure on my part, all right? Or the supervisors of that firefighter, it's a failure of leadership to allow that person to have gotten to that bad of a point where they can't perform the minimum job elements. I'm not so naive as to think that's not happening out there, but that's how we have to look at it. And I know that may sound rather harsh, but that's a fact. When you do put on the gold badge, you take some ownership of that. You take ownership of the people that work for you, with you, and around you. And the rising tide lifts all ships. So it should be everybody's effort when you see somebody struggling to raise that person up. Some other things we've done. There have been tremendous improvements in firefighting turnout gear over the years. The addition of the vapor barrier layer. We've come a long way since rubber coats and rubber 3/4 boots, right? The bloodborne pathogens barriers in the gloves and the coats and the pants. The lighter weight helmets, right? Leather helmets are awesome until one is soaking wet and it weighs about 16 pounds on your head and you're wearing it for 3 or 4 hours on a long-term incident. Unless you have no neck, your neck is going to hurt. So those sorts of advancements have improved our firefighters' wellness. Something as simple as enclosing the cabs of our fire trucks, right? The glory days of yore, when there were open cabs and firefighters could stand up and ride, and we can't enclose the fire truck because then the firefighters can't see what's coming up ahead of them, and so on and so forth. And we've thankfully morphed away from that. But again, an engineering solution to a real problem. Going along with that, mandatory seatbelt use, right? Why is this so hard? Why does this have to be so hard, especially here, to get people to wear seatbelts? I don't know how many more NIOSH line of duty death reports we need to read or see about firefighters being ejected from apparatus when they could have avoided that by simply putting on their seatbelt. And the enforcement of that by fire chiefs and company officers and chief officers, and having those hard conversations. And if that means you have to stroke the pen on somebody to get the message across, then the purpose of discipline is to correct behavior, not to punish. So work on correcting the behavior. There was reference to the on-scene washdown that's done, or the on-scene gross decontamination. We do that here in Tucson. Every structure fire that takes place, we employ that hazmat concept, and there is a unit that is assigned to do just that and perform gross decon and a scrub down of the firefighters that have been in the IDLH, in the harmful environment. And that gear gets bagged and brought back to the stations, where every one of our stations has an extractor in it, and the crews can wash their gear. Providing that second set of gear is critical too, and scheduled gear cleaning in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations, rather than just hanging it back on the rack and letting it sit for the next call and the next call and the next call while it accumulates those known carcinogens. Expanded use of breathing apparatus. Here in Tucson, you go to a fire ground, you're going to see our engineers, our apparatus operators wearing SCBA. Okay, they may not have their full turnout gear on, but the pump operator is going to be wearing SCBA, and that's because not only are they possibly in the area of contaminants from the structure fire itself, but they're operating around a vehicle that's pumping out how many pounds of diesel exhaust per hour while it's running. Our fire investigators, they often get forgotten in this mix, but the use of SCBA for our fire investigators during an investigation after the fire is out, when we know the science tells us the products of combustion and the carcinogens are still present in off-gassing. So we need to protect those people too. The clean cab concept, or the cleaner cab, getting that dirty gear out of the vehicle compartment. You think about, we're in the fire-based EMS system, we don't have, hopefully, a lot of contaminated medical stuff rolling around the back of our ambulances and medic trucks. We shouldn't have it in our fire trucks either. And we've come a long way with that. Some environmental things that we've done that I think have helped the evolution of what's known as heart saver tones, right? The old klaxons of the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. We know that puts undue stress on people, right? That has a proven cardiac effect. So now the technology exists for a more pleasant but effective alert tone that wakes firefighters up if they're on the 24-hour shift to send them to their calls. Station design, as simple things like not having the firefighting turnout gear hanging up in the apparatus bay, not having the firefighters workout space in the apparatus bay, not having your ice machine in the apparatus bay. All really simple things that take a little bit of engineering and maybe a little bit of cost. I'm not saying it's, the gold standard's achievable everywhere, but there are things we can all do environmentally to make the workspace better to help our firefighters' overall wellness. One of the things we've touched on here in Tucson, we're actually in the process of doing a number of station tear down and rebuilds. And part of that is a thought about looking at what goes on the walls of those fire stations. I know coming up in the fire service, you go into any fire station in the United States and you would see pictures, not necessarily in the public area, but pictures of terrible fires, horrific auto accidents, things like that we know are mental triggers for people who suffer from PTSD or other issues. Why would we want to continually subject our members to that? Or the ones who aren't willing or able, feel comfortable enough speaking up about it. So we're really taking a proactive approach to that here and thinking about what goes on the walls of our firehouses and what we expose our crews to. And then the last thing I'll touch on, and I'll turn it over to Eric, and this is probably heresy in some parts of the United States, but we talk about cancer presumptive laws and the amazing strides that have been made there. How about this? How about an all-out 100% ban on any type of tobacco use, right? We know our profession puts us at a statistically greater rate of contracting a wide variety of cancers, developing a wide variety of cancers. Yet there are fire departments in the United States that won't tell their members you can't smoke on duty, you can't chew tobacco on duty. Those personal environmental choices will make it extremely difficult for that firefighter later in their career to have a successful presumptive cancer claim in the workers' compensation or industrial commission environment, right? So again, engineering control, it is a cultural shift, but these are the kind of things we need to do as fire service leaders that may not be the most popular, but 20, 30 years from now, will have those downstream wellness effects. Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for this very clear conversation. I would like to go back to the initial question, which was what practical initiatives have been effective in improving firefighter well-being. And before, I would like to mention some of the interventions that were taken here in the Netherlands. I think that a successful practical intervention is always preceded by a clear vision and by awareness of of the people who are leading the fire service. And it was until 20 years ago that, for example, for physical and medical testing, we didn't know anything about that actually. So what I mentioned before, it was all based on opinions. And about 15-20 years ago, there was this switch, and then people started to say, well, we need to do that in a different way. And then we started to work on more the role-based tests, the role-based medical tests and physical tests. So actually, that's what are the risks of firefighting, and what does a firefighter need? What kind of fitness does he need, and how can we test that? And there was a switch from the more gym-based physical testing to functional testing, and it also goes for the medical test. So we were much more focused on the needs of what does a firefighter really do, and how do we need to test? How do you have to test them? And I think that was a big shift in thinking about firefighter wellness and firefighter health as well. So that was one thing. So the division on firefighter wellness changed by that moment. The other thing was the awareness that firefighters are just human beings with limitations in terms of health and performance, instead of tools that just can be used without consequences for health and performance. So this vision and this awareness started up a lot of new kinds of intervention that really helped to improve firefighter wellness. At this moment, we are, and I go back to the testing part, and Anthony also was mentioning that, because I was involved in the development of the Dutch firefighting medical and physical test, and we developed a physical test, for example, which is totally functional. So it's not about sit-ups, push-ups, and some aerobic run, for example, but all it's a test with a high phase validity. So it's ecological validity. So it's and that also goes for the medical part. So we only test those parts of the body, those physiological parts of the bodies also that are really involved in firefighting. So that was a big shift. And you're talking about the annual screenings. Well, we also have a system in that. So we have we test, we do the physical test every year for every active firefighter, and it depends on the age of a firefighter, what the frequency is of the medical and the physical test. So the older you get, the more you have to be tested. Beside that, we also have now, and I think that's a big improvement, that we have a lot of supportive teams, like well-trained health and performance instructors, physical training instructors, lifestyle coaches, who are also working to have the firefighter population in a good physical, medical, but also mental health status. There are a lot of educational initiatives, and also, and Anthony mentioned that already, we are already also starting to look at different groups within the population of firefighters. And Anthony mentioned that already. We're looking also to group of female firefighters, and I had the honor to publish a paper together with Sarah and Anthony, and also the colleagues from the University of Brighton in England. And so you see that there's more more attention to different groups within the fire service. And also another thing that Chief Ryan just mentioned, we're trying to have the best PPE you can think of. So the Dutch firefighters also have 3 sets of turnout gear, and it's also cleaned after every deployment. So that's a lot of initiatives that are taking place. We're going slow, although we're already busy with this for 15-20 years, but it's still going very slow. But we're getting somewhere step by step.